Welcome back to Almost Above Average. This week's episode, we're just continuing the conversation around mental health and how to reach men, how to get men to be vulnerable, how to give permission to men to be vulnerable. So we're just gonna continue the conversation and see where it goes. Hopefully you've been following the story. I'll put the full video on YouTube as well. But basically, it's just a couple guys. First, it started with me and one guy, my buddy AJ Johnson. And what happened is we had a friend from high school that was set to be on the podcast. And the day he was set to record the podcast, he committed suicide. And it sent off a little shockwave throughout the home community back home and among people that knew him and just friends from high school, people that I never talked to in high school. I have been meeting and talking to because it had an impact. And I don't know if it was just him per se, but there has been so many of our friends from high school that have passed away from suicide that feels like everyone's had enough. It's just like, what the hell is going on? Why are our friends killing themselves? And so we decided to do something about it. So we've been having conversations about it. We're bringing other people in. We brought another gentleman in, Christopher Adams, really nice guy. He's got some good insight. And we're excited to bring him in. I'm also recording a podcast episode today with Dr. Joe Shepard, and we're going to loop him into this and see if we can't create a space where men feel comfortable being vulnerable so that they don't get to that dark place. This conversation is not going to stop. This might be because for sure I've seen enough people die. I've been through my own shit to know that we got to do something. So this is just the second episode of us giving an honest attempt at trying to make a difference. Glad you could come into the conversation. I just talked to, have you watched any of my podcasts, AJ, at all?
I've seen little clips that you post on Facebook.
There was this section I was doing for a while called Thoughtful Thursdays with this guy named Dr. Joe Shepard. Mm-hmm. And he kind of saw the video and like he also wants to get involved. Kind of like we were talking in the first session that we did one of these. Uh-huh. Like I'm hoping that as these clips go out and as the videos and podcasts go out, that more people just start trickling in like, hey, I have a story, or hey, I've experienced this. I think I can help in that way. I think it'll just keep growing. So it's working. I mean, we got another guy already. Yeah. Here we are. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Adams he's a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I asked him to do something and the most time he's actually going to come through for me.
It's rare to find that. It is very rare to find that. I only have a handful of people in North Carolina that I trust, with shit like that. But even like being vulnerable with them is still a challenge. Being vulnerable with your best friend is a challenge, right?
Yeah, 100%. Hey, Black Silk, where'd you go?
He disappeared. No, it still shows he's here. I wonder if the screen. Yeah. Oh, no, he disappeared. Well, he'll pop back on.
Yeah. I think he might have his daughter there or something else going on in the background.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. Oh, there he is again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Everything good?
What happened there? That kind of glitched.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And you kind of disappeared. I was like, oh, shit. Where'd he go?
Yeah. Did you hear what I said?
Say that again?
Did you hear what I said earlier?
No, it started. I saw you guys were talking, but then volume went out. So I tried to see if it was something on my end, and it wasn't. So
you just reset right quick.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, that works a lot better.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Are you on a phone?
Yeah, I was trying to get a laptop, but it wasn't. The camera wasn't working on it when I was working with it earlier.
Yeah. So how did you guys meet?
We actually met at a friend's birthday party.
Yeah.
And then it was actually one of my low moments at that time. Like our son had just got snatched not too long prior to that. Or actually, no. When I met you, that's before. We actually got the chance to hang out. You met my son before he was snatched, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation because she snatched him and then she was too much for her to handle. So then he came back and lived with you for a while.
Yeah.
And then now he's old enough to do his own thing.
Yeah.
I remember because we went to the Martin Luther King Jr. March together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was the second time that he came back.
Yes.
because he was a little bit older then.
How old
Yeah.
is he now, AJ?
He is about to be 20 this year.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's an old guy. I'm an old guy.
We're old. That's crazy. I still think of you as a teenager. You know?
Yeah, no, for real. Going to the Pinion Plaza, hanging
Yeah,
out.
man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
How long ago was that your son taken from you the first time?
How long have we been friends now? We've been about 5-6 years.
No, it's been longer than that.
7? Time
It's been
flies. 7, 8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
funny because I was actually right before this podcast, I was looking at some old memories on Facebook, and I'm like looking, I'm like, oh man, I remember that. I'm like 9 years ago. Yeah.
Shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was second time or the first time he was 14 going on 15, a freshman in high school, getting everything was on track with all of his grades. His attendance was up to par and everything else like that. Kind of got a lot of things worked out. I communicated with her that I just need her actual support with like his phone and when he's on restriction from his phone. And I was just about to install a house phone so she can still contact him. So he couldn't be bullshit on his phone, like as a form of punishment, like that little thing. Right. And then also, like while I had him, was paying child support the entire time while I had him. Like, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm not gonna make too many waves. I finally got him, and I know if I take this money away, she's gonna have a rebuttal. You know what I mean? So you have to put yourself in a vulnerable place in order to just even have your kid. And when it came time to buy him new clothes because he's starting to flood. It's going in transition from into winter break. Like we're about to go into Christmas and everything else like that. He needs new clothes and everything else like that. And he's outgrowing all his old stuff. I need to buy him new stuff. I'm not going to pay child support and buy him stuff at the same time. So that was my boundary. So I was in communications with the child support out there in Washington, and I let them know what's going on. They're like, oh, okay. Well, send us the school's transcripts, let us know that he's going to school out there, and we'll cancel the child support. They weren't putting her on child support. They were just canceling my child support order because there was no court order for her to pay. So that's all they did. They literally canceled the child support. And then shortly, maybe a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month after that, I went to work one night. And I came home. Before I came home, I stopped by the breakfast spot to get him some breakfast because they make some really good breakfast sandwiches at the donut spot right around the corner from my house. And then I normally come in here and I wake him up and I get him ready for school and make sure he's on track and having a good start to his day. And when I go to wake him up, his bed's just empty. I'm like, what the fuck? And it's still dark. It's like it's still early, around 6 o'clock in the morning out here. It's still dark during the winter time, I think it was. Yeah. And then I was like, what the hell? And then as soon as I turned around, I saw his clothes all gone too. I knew exactly what it was. And I gave her a call. They were at the airport. What am I gonna do? Go to the airport and cause a scene?
Right.
So,
oh my god, dude.
Yeah, they're at the airport.
She's god.
My kid. He's at the airport with her. And it's a 15-minute drive. I could go, but what's going to happen? I show up there.
You get arrested.
Yeah.
100%. I gotta work.
That's how it goes down.
So I can't do that. So I got to, That was after that feeling right there. It didn't matter who or what I lost after that.
Yeah.
Doesn't like, what are you going to hurt me?
And that I knew exactly what I would do. I would go fucking nuts and like, I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm stealing. Like all of my bad impulses come flooding in whenever something bad like that happens to me personally. So I can't imagine if I came home, my kid gone.
So I sat back on a reflection,
right?
A lot of reflection, sat back. And then like having friends like Adams who like were there, like we didn't even really talk much about it, but just sitting out by the fire pit, it helped me a lot.
Right.
It helped me a lot. Like, and then eventually when it came time to, I was able to talk about it a little bit more without like, because I don't want that rage, that anger, that depression to sink in and everything else like that. That may lead me down a dark path. Right. You know what I mean? I came too far to go backwards. So just having friends like that to be there for me, even without saying anything or doing anything.
Mm-hmm. We kind of touched on that last, like just being present. And I've heard that from a lot of different people, how powerful just being present is. And I was thinking about it while you were talking, and like, you don't necessarily have to tell the other person what's going on. Like, you can kind of read it. So I'm guessing Chris could see that on you, and you weren't really telling him what was on your mind. You were just like, you needed something, and he provided that. So it was kind of like just a space to relax, really, or maybe not relax, but
just to breathe, just to exhale,
right.
just to
like, it's
let me settle in, let me figure out what's going on.
Right.
Center. Let me refocus. Let me just calm down and just figure out the right course of action.
Right.
What can I do? Like, and I don't know. It was a hard situation to be in, and it's hard to find the words like to describe it as it happens. You know what I mean? Like what you go through, that rage. Like,
yeah.
I mean, especially when you're doing everything right. You know what I mean? Like that's what, like, everything was lining up the way it should have been. Like relationships were like growing. You know what I mean? Like influence. I was able to have the influence on him that I think he needed to have, that he could still use today. But with that action, it took away all of my power as a father.
Yeah. It kind of sets you on a new course too. Like, you almost have to rebuild a new relationship with your son now. Well, you do, right? You basically have to start over.
Yeah. Like when he came out the next time, for sure. We had to restart over.
Because he's probably a different person now. He's got his mom's influence on him more than you. So
yeah, it's always been that way. It's always been
kind of hard because statistically that is super dangerous as an individual, to have your mom raise you. I didn't realize that so much until like when you start reading statistics and realizing structure and everything else. And it's no bashing on any females or whatnot, but then after a while you end up becoming unruly because they're having the emotional standpoint of a woman, but you're not a woman. You still have massive amounts of testosterone and everything else in your body. So it makes it very, very hard growing up if you do not have that center of a balance that a man can actually give to you. You know what I mean? A father.
Oh, it's so necessary.
Yeah.
I'm finding that out more and more. Like, even the times that Amanda and I were separated, and one was like a year. Actually, there was 2 different times that was like a year long. So we had to share kids, you know what I mean? But in that short amount of time, like, they change, my influence is less. So, you know, they start becoming, not that I want to control who they become. I just want to make sure the man part is getting into the kids, you know. They
understand the discipline of being a man, because it comes with a set of discipline that women aren't used to. Like, we used to being trained tough. Like, when we got trained, they cuss at us. They yell at us. They scream. Like, I mean, there's all types of hazing.
Very demoralizing.
It's very demoralizing.
Yeah.
And so, like, by having a father figure or even older brothers or other friends, it kind of has able to rein in all of this stuff and prepare yourself for the adult world, because they don't baby you out there.
Right? Yeah, having men in your life like puts guardrails on how you grow up and kind of gives you a direction. Like, when you see a man not do something and you notice it, you're like, oh shit, I'm going to learn that from that guy. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but I just learned it because I saw another man do it and I respected him because he looked like a man.
It works.
Right.
Yeah. Because I've noticed even at my, I had this whole situation that happened at my daughter's school where I had to come into a parent-teacher conference. And so it was like the principal of the school, my daughter's mom, and I was literally the only man on this thing. And the rest of everybody was a female. And there was like 5 of us in the room. And the teacher literally said, well, the one problem that I have with Addie is that I told her that she needed to do X, Y, Z. She said, no one's allowed to tell me what to do except my dad. And like, all the eyes looked directly at me. I'm like, oh. But it was a really funny situation because it seems like, because most of the industry for like teaching and principals and so forth, most of those are dominated by women. But it makes it very funny when it comes into a play where somebody doesn't respect the woman's authority.
Right. Yeah. But like boys who were raised by a single mom, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you got to learn the respect part too. Like, you learn from watching how other men deal with their emotions. You know what I mean? So for a long time growing up, I mismanaged my own emotions because I watched my dad, and he just didn't deal with that.
Yeah.
He didn't deal with emotions. He didn't show emotion. So I thought that was how it's supposed to be. Turned out, like, I think that was one of the reasons that kind of screwed me over, is because I'm trying to hold it all in because I think that's what the world wants. And it got to a point where it built up to the threshold where I'm like, I want to kill myself now, you know? So I think that's what we're trying to address right here, is not to get men or anyone really into a situation where they're thinking like that.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. I think that's the thing we're trying to get rid of, is the feeling like the masculine part is holding it all in, like not showing, not telling, not even just talking about certain things. Like, I understand you may want to get things in order in your own head, or you may feel like you need to just process things on your own, but even just having someone else to sit in that with you or talk to you, like, and then when you're able to talk about it, start talking about it.
Right.
And as soon as you start building up those neural pathways, it becomes easier. And seeing it in action, it helps a lot. Like, I learned a lot through that with Adams. Like, he is open, he's vulnerable, he's right there on the spot all the time. Like, whatever is on his mind, he's actually going to tell you right then and there. And I respect him for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's not a goofy with it at all. You know what I mean? He handles his business. And even when he's in the wrong, you know what I mean? Like, he's able to, like, all right, well, let me reflect on that. You know what I mean? And actually think about that. And, like, or if you're in the wrong, he'll let you know, like, hey, no.
No, that's on you, buddy. You fucked up. Anyway, I still love you.
That's what I really love and respect about my friend group out here, is, like, we hold each other accountable, and we all want to see each other be the best versions of ourselves that we can. We're not with each other. We're in competition with ourselves, and we hold each other accountable for that.
Right. Yeah. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot too, is, you know, part of this work that we're doing, I hope will get into my children, just because there is a slight worry that I have that because of the way I grew up and the way my mind developed and ended the way that it did, I want to protect them from that as much as possible. So I'm trying to give them nuggets from my childhood. Like, you know, I smoked weed at this age. This is the kind of stuff I used to do. It didn't work. Look at me now. I mean, I'm still struggling at 42. I just got sober. Like, those are the lessons that I feel I need to impart on the boys, just because I didn't have that from my dad. My dad didn't really give me a direction on how to be. The only thing not the only thing, but one of the biggest things that my dad taught me, just as being a man, is you take care of your family. You pay the bills, you go to work, you take care of your family. That's pretty much how my dad dealt with the family. Yeah. Emotionally as well. Like, I never saw the emotions on his face. It was just, yep, yes, no, you know, just very straightforward. I've seen him cry maybe twice his whole life. When my mom died, and then, or not my mom, when his mom died, and then one other time. I think my brother died, he cried. Yeah. But so it makes me think, what about his growing up happened that he didn't have anyone that he would feel comfortable talking about his emotions with? Yeah. And then that makes me think there's a whole long line of the McIntyre clan, and we've just been bottling this shit up for generations. You know?
I know that whole feeling.
Right.
It was a whole situation because I'm mixed, right? And one random day, I was in my 20s, like tiptoeing on late 20s. I was like 26-ish. And I got a message on Facebook from some redheaded lady. And I usually don't read them or whatever, but for some reason I started like reading all these messages that I have on it. It's usually just scams, you know what I mean? But then I had this message from this lady, and she's all like, hey, I have our family tree. And I'm like, our family tree? She's like, yeah, I'm your Aunt Dawn. I'm like, I have an Aunt Dawn? Well, racism and stuff like that in the family, it kind of happens. So it's kind of a funny situation, because it's like, it's a lot of things, and it goes back to with AJ talking about our friend group having accountability and stuff like that. It can really tear a family apart. It can really tear friendships apart. It can tear a lot of things apart when you don't. And when you say you wonder why your father just kind of left things like the way it were, it's probably because he found out that that's the only thing that actually worked within that form or that area of town or whatever. He probably figured out a good solution and just put my head down, go to work, make sure everyone's good here, and I'm Gucci. Because a lot of times when you branch out and stuff, you can find, because there's a lot of horrible people out there, there's a lot of good people out there. But to not deal with the horrible people, that would be better than to branch out trying to find the good people sometimes in some people's profession. So it really does play a balancing game when it really comes down to it, because
Oh,
all the time we really try to help out the whole situation, and the only way we can do it is to sacrifice other aspects, and that's what I've known with a lot of things. And I ended up meeting a lot of my cousins and stuff after that, just due to the fact that some of the old people died and people had the liberty to do that. But yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. There's so many things too that lead to that, because I think like all of the issues that I ended up having were reflections or just issues that happened in my childhood that I never addressed as I got older. You know, like my drinking and drug use was all, it was an anxiety thing. Now that I'm older and I am sober, I realize that I have a lot of anxiety that alcohol cured, you know? So little things like that put me down a path. I mean, if an adult is already on that path, it's going to be hard to reach them. But I don't want to target children, but you know what I mean? How do we find someone that needs help and get him help? You know? I mean, they're not going to raise their hands like, I'm feeling suicidal. Can you help me? You know?
No.
I'm depressed. Can you help me?
I mean, I think the people who do need the help, they're the ones who are isolating. So it's harder to reach them off rip. Something that stops, like, I think I wouldn't have thoughts about it, but it's harder to have thoughts about it when you have a friend that's close to you. When you have somebody that's right there close to you. So if, like, just being there for people, being supportive to another person, being the change that you want to see. The more you work on yourself, the more you're able to be that, the more you're able to show that. And I think that's what goes into it. Like, I used to wear a wristband that says "Be the Change." I took it off for a work thing.
Sure you did.
But like I really think about that. Like, it's you want to be the change that you want to see. And the more you work on yourself, the more you're able to actually do. And the more we're pulling other people up or just taking people out, like, hey, yeah, come play disc golf with me. Hey, yeah, come have a bonfire with me. Hey, yeah, come join my podcast. Like, it's all types of different ways to come back and be a part of something. And I think that's what we're missing. We're missing a lot of that. And as kids, we felt isolated as crazy. Like, we were both going through that anxiety together. Right. We both started drinking from a young age.
Right. Yeah. Because it made everything better at the time.
Literally.
Turns out, not a good long-term plan.
Yeah, not a great long-term plan, but I mean, hey, learn from the people who've gone through the things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. Damn, I sound like my parents.
But you know what's crazy? So, like, an alcoholic, like me per se, I'm an alcoholic. I can identify with other alcoholics. There's a place for that. You know, there's a group that's worldwide that almost everyone knows about AA, right? So where is that community? That community is so much harder to find for a depressed person or a suicidal person, or maybe that doesn't exist. Maybe just that's what we're creating, huh? Just a person, yeah.
Because as you enter adulthood, 30s and above, the only people you really make friends with are the people you work with. Other than that, unless you're actually stepping out of just what your dad do, buried his head into work and just didn't say anything, bottled anything upstairs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or some dads go to the bar, but like that's that. I think that's what uniting dads is, whether it's like somebody, like, even just being friends, just being there for each other, letting each other know that we're all here. Like, some of us may be going through the same thing. And the hardest part about that is the vulnerability, is the willingness to talk. Or so come out,
right?
Have a bonfire, have a cookout. You know what I mean? Like, do things like that to where you can feel a part of something. And then don't be upset if people tell you that you are the fucking problem, because sometimes you are the fucking problem. Right. It all comes from growth. All of us has gone through growth. You don't want to be the same person you are when you're in your 20s. You know what I mean? You want to grow from the person that you are, the person you have been.
Right. And I think this is like what we're doing right now. It's kind of this is going to be helpful to me. So it'll turn into a thing where I'm helping myself constantly just by talking about this. And hopefully, everybody else is getting that same information, Oh. So what do you think, Chris?
I think that, having a good support group. And one main thing about support groups is that you have to show up too. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you can't go to an AAA meeting. You can't go and sign up for AAA and never show up to a meeting and expect, I've been signed up for 3 years. Well, cool, but you have to show up. You have to talk. You have to, jump in and so forth. Now, the thing about it is that you have to give in to friendships just like you take from friendships. There's a big problem that a lot of people get to, and they get super depressed. And they're like, oh, well, I don't have any friends. I'm like, okay, cool. What have you done to prove yourself as a friend? And they can't answer a whole thing. You see people online complaining about the government, complaining about how high things are and all this kind of stuff. And they're living at their parents at 30 to 40.
Right.
And it's like, you're not paying for anything. You're not involved. You don't have an income tax because you have no income. Or you're doing one government program after another, and yet you're complaining about the system that you're in, but you're not doing anything to improve it. And that's the thing about it, is that it makes it very hard for actual quality friends to really accept you in if every single time you come around and you're just asking them for money, or dumping things on them. So at one point, you have to actually look for people who you want to be more like. Like if you find somebody who's depressed all the time and you're depressed all the time, that's just going to increase your depression. But if you find somebody that's happy like a good amount of time, or at least struggling but finding a way, that's more of a person that you'd probably want to be around, because something's going on in your life. They can look at it and say, okay, look, this is a problem. You probably need to fix it. I've had several points in time where I've had people in my friend groups and so forth that were depressed and everything else. And I told them, like, okay, well, started talking to them about it. And the thing about it is that the people that actually took my words to heart and started actually researching things or getting out of the slump or getting out, they improved their life a great amount. Actually, one of my friends, Chris Rodriguez, has started his own podcast. I think it's called Doom Scrollers. And he was calling me. He's like, yeah, we were talking and so forth. And then I stopped going to the bars and I started really kind of digging in, and I've improved my life. I have a girlfriend that actually likes me, and I've made a better connection with my daughter and everything else. But then I have other friends that, they'll constantly ask me for help or for advice, and they never take it. And I'll see them post up stuff on any platform. Oh, well, life is so hard and this, that, the other. And I'm just like, blow them off, because there's no real point. I have another really good friend named Chris Harden. And AJ knows him. We all do stuff together. But the thing about it is that we both try to mentor this friend of ours, and they just refuse. And then when you actually talk to them, they act like you're the enemy. So it's like, well, how are you supposed to get quality friends when every single quality friend you attack one point in time or another?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a hard one too.
That reminds me of my son, kind of. It's like if you approach the world with vinegar, it's not going to get too far. Well, that's the lesson I'm trying to. While you were telling me that story, that reminded me of another story that I kind of went through when I tried to commit suicide. During that whole period, it was probably like 3 or 4 months or something like that. I have another good friend, close friend of mine, who at the same time, we were both in this like depressive state. And when I think back on this time, I was just drinking until I was belligerent and then doing whatever. But during these days, like this guy, a really good friend of mine, he would call me, he would call my ex-wife, he would call a bunch of our friends in our friend group and do his, he would be drunk and have his, I'm going to kill myself, whiny call routine. Like it would be every day. And he would call and just tell that he's going to cut himself. He's no reason to live, like just threats every single day, all the time. He would do that to all our friend group and my wife, or my ex-wife at the time. And he would also do it to me. But what he didn't know, and what not a lot of people during that time knew, is that I was going through it and I'm listening to him trying to be like thinking I'm being there for him. Yeah, but we're both in this
Yo, trauma.
And I end up like, he never knew it because I couldn't get a word into him. Like he called me and it was just for me to listen to him, right? Or he called everyone just for them to listen because he's just going crazy. And that whole time period, and I did what I did, went to the hospital, all that stuff, ended up moving out here, getting sober, blah. But even today, that was over 4 years ago. But even today, I can't contact him because when I think of him or when I see his name, like a friend request that's been sitting in my Facebook profile for like 6 months. But every time I see it or like see his name, it brings me back to these phone calls like right before I was going to kill myself. And I still have a mental block where I think I can deal with him, but still remember everything that happened during those times. So I don't want to talk to him anymore. You know what I mean? And he's a very close friend of mine, but because of this little dark time. So the reason I said that is because while you were talking, if two depressed people accidentally get together, that could be a nightmare also.
Yeah, can be. It just pulls you further down off into that. And all you're doing is like, I mean, are they even listening to each other at that point? Or are they just trauma bonding at that point? Like, I mean, it's just, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that could be. And then you're not responsible for someone else, like to be someone's trauma dump on a regular basis at the same, like I can be an ear for you, but there's certain aspects where like you should actually like, what's up with therapy? Like go get a session in, like to where like therapy's the perfect stranger, the absolute perfect stranger. The exact same way we're talking right here, you could be in a therapist session, like, you know what I mean? For $10, so $1 a session. Like that's, I mean, it's cheap. It's not that expensive. You pay more for Xbox, you pay more for Netflix than you could for therapy. And just getting this stuff off your chest and then actually wanting to apply, like, because they can also give you exercises to apply. That's why being a friend is so hard, because we're also going to give you exercises and things to apply to get you out of the funk yourself. Like we can guide you, but you have to do the work yourself. No one can do the work for you. You have to be able to do the work yourself.
Right. And being that when you're in a depressed state, or when I am, like knowing that you have that work to do to get better, it's hard to get motivated to do it. You know, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. I mean, and it feels impossible because it feels like it's so much.
Right.
And that's why the therapy, they give you like little bits and pieces, things to start. Once you start building those neural pathways, it'll open up those flows and make it easier for you to continue doing that. But it always worked. It still worked for me.
Yeah.
It's always work, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. At least being in a better mental state than things that could inconvenience you or make you feel upset doesn't make you feel that way anymore, because you realize that's all on you. Like it's not on that other stuff that's upsetting me. No, it's how you're reacting to that other stuff that just so happens to be going on. It doesn't matter.
You know, it seems really hard, but you can choose your response. You can. It's it's hard to do, especially when you're in that mind state. But it is a choice. You know, like being offended. You can choose to be offended. It don't have to be. You know?
You said some outrageous shit. You're an idiot. Move on.
Well, that's a lot of good stuff, man. I mean, we got enough for an episode. Unless you guys got some more stuff you want to say.
Did you really touch on vulnerabilities, or do we just shoot the shit a little bit?
It's also a thing where you have to realize when to be vulnerable as well. You know what I mean? You can be, because if you just start like trauma dumping on everybody, holy crap, that's not only not good, but what if you trauma dump on somebody who potentially could be your enemy? You know what I mean?
Right. Give them a bunch of ammo.
Exactly. And then when you get better, you know, like say you and your coworker are going in for a job, or have been working the same job for a while, and then you guys go in for an interview to get either management or a higher paid position. And the next thing you know, they got it because they told on you a bunch of stuff that you were either this or the other about, or even worse, say if like random drug tests and they realized something that you did a while back, you know?
Right.
And it's a really kind of a hard situation because, you know, when it comes down to it, it's really hard for you to really understand who actually is your friend and stuff. You have to put a lot of work into that as well. So the thing about it is like what we were saying earlier, everything is work, it's not like laundry just randomly cleans itself, but it's more satisfying when you finish that work because it's like you either have your clean house, your clean environment, your clean room, you're not walking around smelling like, a homeless person or someone who crapped themselves every single day. So putting in the work for any kind of endeavor like that is always going to, shoot some kind of rewards. Like there's plenty of people that are mystics or whatnot. Even just people who believe in it is that the universe never, rewards their members shallow. They always, for as much as you put in, you're going to receive back, and that's the hard part because a lot of times people get in these depressive holes and they're just sinking because they're just not doing anything to come back out of it. That's how you crash.
Yeah. A lot of people just want easy.
Well,
I did.
It's really funny.
A lot of people don't want to do the work.
It's really funny because I remember a time when I was working like 60 to 70 hours a week. And I was taking care of things and I was working in this, the other. And somebody literally sent me a message. It's like, I want to be like you because life is so much easier where you're at. I'm like, excuse me.
Wow.
You've been literally watching TV for the last, 8 hours. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if I was to tell the same person, if the person really understood how much I actually did and I was vulnerable to that point of saying, hey, look, I'm tired,
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to show that it's like, do they even care? Because they only see their own insufficiencies, inadequacies, and stuff like that that's in their face, that they don't see any of the work that you've done. It's kind of like saying, I want to be Michael Jordan, but you've never thrown a basketball in your life. You've never practiced. You've never been to the gym. It's
right.
like, how?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you got to do the work.
Yeah. I'd tell you a little story about that kind of right now. Like just a way to be vulnerable right now. Like I'm telling you about an issue I'm dealing with, or we've been dealing with for the last couple of years with my youngest son. He's 12 years old. He has this thing. He has the same anxiety. I'm learning a lot about him, about myself at a young age, watching him, because I can kind of see memories, like see a look on his face and be like, oh shit, I remember that. Like, I know what he's thinking. I know what he's feeling, And so I can see his anxiety that he goes through. And what we've been experiencing the last couple of years is it's hard to get him to school. Very hard to get him out of bed and get him rolling to school. So my first strategy for the first year is like, I'm the fucking dad. I'm tell you what's going on. I'm going to get mad. I'm going to be a man and I'm going to show you. Like, that was my approach. And what happened from that approach was a bunch of the shit in our house got broke. I've had to call the cops a few times and have my 12-year-old taken. Like, so what I learned from that is that my approach was wrong. He's 12 years old. Like, of course, like as a dad and as a man, I want to be able to, like, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to fucking do it because I'm your dad. Yeah. It doesn't work on him. He's our fourth kid. He's the youngest one. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is that only leads to broken things, hurt feelings, and like all bad stuff. And so over the last year, we've been kind of working with him and the school and therapists and psychologists and stuff. Just like the school is totally okay with just bring him in whenever he gets up, like he can come to school whenever he wants, legit right now. But even still, it's almost impossible to get him out of bed in the morning and take him to school. Like, I usually have to take him late. This morning before the podcast, I was like hoping I could run him to school, but he's just not having it. And if I engage with the angry kid that I have, then shit gets broke everywhere. And then cops end up getting called. Like, I know how it goes. So I've had to learn to just eat my own feelings. Like, I hate that he's sitting in the other room. He should be at school. Mm-hmm. But that's just where we're at with him. It's just I have to treat him differently because he's a different child. But he has the same anxieties that I had as a kid that I used alcohol and drugs for. So I'm trying to teach him that, like, because I can identify it in him. Like, that's the exact reason I started it. So, it's just another thing for me to watch. But those are the lessons I'm trying to teach my kids to avoid this mental health crisis that I had. If they can get a handle on these little issues while they're young, hopefully they won't be a wildfire when they get to my age. You know what I mean? They'll have some systems in place to deal with themselves, you know?
And that's a tough situation to be in.
What's going on at my house?
Yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. Like when you feel like you don't really have the control to do, like, and then your approach isn't like, so it takes that reflection. That's a tough situation to be in.
It took, actually the reflection on that took about a year, and me and Amanda had split up over this, like our parenting differences. I had to leave the house a while ago. I moved out, got my own apartment, and we were split up for a year, and just because I couldn't approach him correctly,
Yeah.
But now we've both changed our approaches, and it is going better. He's a super smart kid too. Like, he's great at school. It's just getting him to get out of bed and go is the biggest problem, Yeah. I never had that problem. I never thought I never considered it to be a thing that I could just not go to school.
That's me all day. That's me. Like, when I did show up to school, they're like, wait, who are you again?
Why are you here?
Yeah. Like, this is what see. Yeah. I was here the first day.
I got a question. What incentives are you giving him to actually make it easier for him to go to school?
Well, right now his incentives are he gets to keep his PC, his Oculus, and his phone. So that's the only thing. So like his whole deal, like if he doesn't go today, he loses all of that. He's aware of it. He'll just be pissed about it later. Like he'll rather deal with that.
I mean, there's a lot of things. I remember when I was going to college, there was this one guy that I was friends with, and he said that he really didn't like school and that it was a problem like that. What they ended up doing was giving him a curriculum where he could do the schoolwork at home.
Mm-hmm.
And because it doesn't sound like he's not going to school because you're a bad parent or anything. It sounds like there's something maybe at school that it's kind of setting him off. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that could be a problem, because if you're going to somewhere where you're not welcomed and you don't have any friends or this other, then it makes it very hard for you to actually not just want to go to school, but actually be there as an actual, participant in learning and everything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. He doesn't have any friends at school. All his friends are online.
And there it is. I think that distance of community then. So he would rather be with his community than at school with people that he doesn't even know or care to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is he the one that happens to be approaching things like vinegar?
Yeah.
There you go. That could be what it is right there.
Yeah, I think there is something to that. I mean, there was a time a couple of years ago, like he was making a few friends outside of the internet, and then like all of a sudden it stopped. Like he doesn't hang out with anyone at all.
There was something that happened.
Yeah.
Well, he's been suspended. Like he fights a lot. He's been in a lot of trouble at school for his attitude and things like that.
Yeah.
But there's some bullies in his past that I think they've worked out their issues. Like he's beat him up. Like there's been back and forth with the bullies with him.
Yeah.
Or he might be the bully too. Like that's always something to consider.
Yeah.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. I remember Addie used to be a bully a little bit. I had to stop her from that real quick. I'm like, Addie, you're not going to have any friends this way.
Yeah, exactly.
She's doing a lot better now.
How old's your daughter?
She is 8.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. She's going to be 9 here in a couple months. So.
All right. Exciting.
I know.
Yeah, my youngest will be 13 in April.
Yeah, it was a good month.
Teenage angst.
Oh yeah, my second to oldest will be 16 in July. So he showed me a bunch of freaking pictures of Mustangs that he wants this morning. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
What do you think, man?
I remember on the way home from school, because I used to buy parts from LMR that does like muscle cars and so forth. But I actually have a Mustang. And Addie was just looking good and like, this one right here is going to be my car. Like, oh my goodness. Honestly, by the time she actually is old enough to drive a car, I could probably get one for like $2,000.
Yeah. I told my son, I was like, it's not going to be a Mustang. You better Google freaking rusted bucket.
A lot of them are dropping down in prices. A lot of the used cars are dropping down in prices again.
Yeah.
Before it used to be like, there would be a decent price, and then everyone's like, I know what I have. Like, and then now it's kind of like, well, I mean, I can sell it for this much, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you may be able to. You just have to keep your eyes open.
We'll shall see.
Crossing fingers for you.
Yeah.
Cross fingers for this internet connection that you got.
He didn't even hear you.
Yeah. See?
Well, shit. All right. You guys want to call it?
Yeah, we can.
You guys got anything more you want to talk about?
Let's see. Well, why don't we do a recap?
Yeah.
So a lot of things with vulnerability, and correct me if I'm wrong or chime in whenever you need to. You have some things where you have to find a sense of community and you have to find your tribe. We have to reach out to the right people. We have situations where we have to learn how to reach out. We have situations where we have to figure a better coping mechanism as opposed to just, drugs and alcohol or whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Bottling it up.
yeah,
Therapy.
works great as well.
And being cognizant of your friends and family around you, try to have a lead on how they're feeling. Just to know.
Yeah.
I will say this, that it's kind of hard because I do little checkups every once in a while, but sometimes checking up on people is like that one Scream movie where they had that one-way glass that's soundproof, and the person's just yelling and pounding on the glass, but no one can hear you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is. It's kind of
That's
like
an awkward conversation, though.
yeah,
Everything
it's
good?
very
Yeah, we're
awkward
good.
conversation. It's really hard to catch up to people.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you have to show up at someone's house. It seems like if you're gonna actually get to them.
Yeah. Be willing to breathe with somebody on the phone. Just over here bullshitting while you clean up the house or doing something like that. Just sitting over there, have a hour-long conversation. You know what I mean?
Present for your friend.
Just be present. Because eventually it's going to come out. Because they want to tell you. They just don't feel like they can be vulnerable enough yet. But they think they want to tell you.
Yeah, there's always that awkward silence when you're sitting with someone. Like, you can tell there's something to be said, but no one's saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting past that moment. If you feel that moment in your life, just say something to the person next to you.
Yeah.
More than nothing.
Yeah. It makes it very hard because there's been sometimes when in my life where I reached out to people and nobody answered.
Mm-hmm.
You also figure out who's your people too.
This was way before I met you though.
You also, if you can be open and actually be open with somebody, and your response isn't like it not there. There is no response. Were they even listening to you? That's not your person, bro.
Exactly. That's
they don't care about you.
That's when me and my ex split up and so forth. When everything was going down, there was a lot of people at the church and a lot of other people that I literally proved that, hey, look, I'm innocent here, and this is what happened, and they still went against me. So then after a while, it's kind of like, wait a minute, because I was having people tell me like happy life and all that kind of stuff. And then I said, wait a minute, you're on your like third wife. If I would have been doing all these things to her like she's doing to me, you guys would all be raising hell, pitchforks and everything else and trying to attack me. And I do know there's a disparity between men and women, especially on wrongdoings or whatnot. But then after a while, it's kind of like, I just realized like, hey, look, these people aren't my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to move on. That was painful and hard and everything else like that. But it reaped so much better rewards. I have people like Chris Hardy that's really in my life. I used to have Wolf, but rest his soul. Yeah, rest in peace. I got you. And that's a big one, And I have a lot of other people that really actually respect me, and we actually have a good time, and we actually can talk and be vulnerable.
I think that's a good point. Know who those people are inside of your circle. Like we all probably know a ton of people, but I know like 5 people I can call right now with anything.
Yeah.
So identify those people in your life. It might be your sister, it might be your cousin, your mom, but identify those people who you trust implicitly. Whoever's going to pick up your phone call, make sure you're in tune with them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And the only way you find out those people is if you're actually vulnerable with them.
Right.
Like pressure bust pipes. Like you can't just be all cool, honky dory, shooting the shit. Yeah, we talk sports all the time, but if you don't have deep conversations, then like you got to be vulnerable sometimes to actually get those conversations.
Right. And I think that goes to relationship building too. So like when I'm building a relationship, I want to know, your wife's name, your kids, what you do for a living. I want to get to know who you are. You know what I mean? So build.
You choose your career, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Who are you?
You want to know how they think,
Yeah,
not just the surface level answers. We want to know why they got to that, because then you'll find probably have more in common.
Yeah.
So,
and even the things you don't find in common, you end up learning a lot more about people, places, and things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You build your network up to be so much stronger that way.
Yes.
So much stronger.
Yes. And I mean, that always helps you financially, especially because the thing about it is that one of my girl's friends right now is having a very, very hard time finding a job. And there's a girl that she went to an interview and they told her, it's like, well, you have to know somebody in order to get a job like this. And they're like, well, that's not fair. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, that person burned so many bridges that it's like the point in time where people could actually be there for you, they're not, because you throw them off of your Facebook, attack them or whatever. So, I mean, it's the point where it's like you can't go around, spreading violence and then claim peace.
yeah, and that goes back to too, like, be self-aware. Like, you really gotta do a little work to figure out what other people, how you're perceived by everyone, so you can make adjustments from there. Because if you're like we were talking about earlier, if you're just throwing vinegar out into the world, and then you're gonna be mad that everyone's treating you like shit because you don't know that you're just pissing vinegar to the world, like, do a little work on seeing, self-reflection, seeing how you are, how people receive you in the world. That'll give you good insight on it.
And at the same time, like, we're not telling you to be overly nice about things. Be genuine and be true to yourself. Like, help people out when you can help out people. If you can't help out people, tell them no. Yeah. And then how they receive the no is also like whether you can deal with them or not.
Yeah, because one thing that made it hard for me to do no's was because I've actually gotten disowned by no's. You know what I mean? And it's like nobody else helped you out. And because I wasn't able to help you out once because I had to go help my mom with something or I had other plans, and next thing you know, I'm the one getting disowned. It's like, dude, nobody else helped you at all with any of these projects. Why are you even like upset at me?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that after a while, you just realize, okay, well, this person really I shouldn't put any more time or effort into because they're just going to fly off the handle and drop me and block me and everything else just to come back when they need something else.
Right.
Nah, I'm good.
That's not your person. Those aren't your friends.
Right.
Those people just so those are transactional associates that just come in and out for specific reasons.
Yeah.
And I think we have a very transactional society.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about it is friendships do have their points of transaction. You can go and borrow money from one of your friends, but God, be very careful at paying them back because
be diligent.
You never want to sever those friendships. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. You don't lose your friendship over money or anything else like that. That's for sure.
Right.
So be very diligent about paying somebody back. And I've noticed that people like that have a lot of financial issues. They tend to borrow $40. That seems to be the magical number. And it's anywhere.
Why if you didn't have someone borrow $500?
Yeah. It's like if you can't survive the next day without $10 to $40, like trust. If you need cool, I'll give it to you. But if it's a repeat, then it's automatically a no, and you just paid me or I just paid you to get rid of you. Like I'm no. Like
keep the 40, but you taught me an important lesson.
Yep, exactly. It was a $40 lesson for me.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, dude. I think we got some good stuff.
Yeah, a whole lot of snippets.
Yeah, and then we'll keep going, man. We'll keep pulling people. You want to do it again next week, Chris?
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
That will get a little bit more time to talk about some topics, come up with some ideas and things like that, and also try to come up with some solutions as well.
Let's do that. Yeah,
so we talked about some solutions as well, like some different stuff to actually like get people to come out, like, and just being around and campfires and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Right. Why don't we
Are you in town? Because we can always do something here if you guys wanted to come out.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I'll take a trip to Texas. I mean, let me just get my finances in order.
You're always welcome.
Hopefully I can get the roof thing going pretty quick because it is lucrative, and I do want to have a little more money to travel around. I do want to do traveling podcasts. Like I want to have a mobile setup and just be able to go meet people where they're at,
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, all good stuff. I put it on my calendar for 2 weeks from today.
What's the date on that?
It's going to be the 17th.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. I'm also going to have a similar conversation with that Dr. Joe Shepard I was talking about earlier on Wednesday. Him and I we've touched on a few men's topics over the last year. So we're going to kind of also continue the conversation and see what we come up with.
You also got a nice little editing clip of me fidgeting the whole fucking time, right?
I'm actually going to put together clips of just that and 2 minutes long of just you doing shit like this.
Yeah. We got Adams with his internet issues.
Dude, I want a scene of just you fixing your face, and I want a scene of him just brushing his hair. And then I'll be in there playing guitar. Yeah.
Adams also plays guitar, bass.
Do you?
Yeah, he plays everything.
Let's go.
My major was actually music. I have a couple of degrees up here, not to mention some certificates.
Yeah. Maybe we can collab in the future.
Sweet.
Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks
we'll
for
do it
having
again. Let's keep the conversation rolling. I got some good stuff in here. And I think the biggest part of this is showing up. Just showing up.
Yeah.
Even if the content isn't great, don't let it. I'm trying not to let it beat me when it is, but it doesn't matter. Half the battle is showing up and having the conversation. So as long as we show up and do the thing, I can be satisfied with that.
Yeah. Next time I'll handcuff myself so I can't to the chair so I can't
run out. Thank you to everyone for tuning into this important episode of Almost Above Average. We are grateful to have Christopher Adams, aka Black Silk, join us today and share his insights on a topic that is often overlooked but desperately needs attention: depression in men. In this episode, we explore why it's difficult for men to speak up about their struggles with depression, and we discuss ways to create safe spaces where men feel comfortable opening up about their issues. We appreciate Christopher's honesty and the time he took to be with us. If you or someone you know is struggling with depression or mental health issues, please know that you're not alone. We want to hear your story. If you have a personal experience or message of hope that you'd like to share, please reach out to us at mcmedia.network.llc@gmail.com. That's mcmedia.network.llc@gmail.com. We will keep your email anonymous and use your story to inspire others and help break down the stigma surrounding mental health. Your story matters, and it could be the catalyst for someone else's journey towards healing. Let's work together to create a supportive community where everyone feels heard and understood. By sharing our experiences and creating safe spaces for conversation, we can help men feel more comfortable speaking up about their struggles. And if you believe in our mission to create more open and supportive environment for mental health discussions, we invite you to join us by subscribing to our podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and share important stories. If this episode resonated with you, please consider leaving a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us reach more listeners who need to hear these conversations. Also, share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Your actions can help us create a ripple effect of support and understanding. Stay tuned for the next episode where we will continue exploring important topics and sharing stories that need to be heard. Thank you for tuning in to Almost Above Average. We'll see you on the next one.